but all right. All right, thank you, Hannah. So Hannah and I are with Voces, and I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Mike Jacobs. I've been a teacher for 22 years up until June, and I finally made the switch to something else. Technology has always been a big thing for me, whether it is in Canvas. I was a math teacher and economics teacher, and I've trained a lot of teachers. And so I got into computer programming, and I was lucky enough to catch on with Voces. So I've been working as a web developer with Voces all summer, and it meant I had to learn this brand new platform. And it was something that was really fun for me. And I got to just dive in. And like I said, I'm not a Spanish teacher or a French teacher. I do speak Spanish. My wife is a Spanish teacher. So I've been hearing about Voces for quite some time. And for me, it was great to just jump in and see a brand new platform. And so what I'm going to do today is, well, I'll share my screen and I'll try to explain to you what we're going to do. So first, can I get a little confirmation? Can you all see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
All right, that's great. Let me just tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today, about how it's going to work. Really, I'm going to be talking about just the student experience and how all those little decisions that you make. So you all are teachers. Think about how many decisions you make in a day. Every decision that you make changes the experience of the student. And that could be as simple as whether or not you are standing at the door when they walk in, or whether you're sitting at your desk. I mean, you make thousands of decisions just nonstop. And it sounds like a lot of you are veteran teachers. And so you've got some of those decisions down and you understand, oh, if I do this, then it's probably going to affect my students in this way. Well, once we get to a new platform, Voces has all sorts of options. And what I have found, especially when I'm looking at the platform as a new user, is that sometimes it could be overwhelming because there's so many decisions to make. But what I'm going to hopefully show you all is a good way to learn the platform and just understand how you can make intentional decisions when you're using the Voces curriculum. So here's what we're going to do. It's kind of how we'll follow this. I'm going to show you how to log in as a teacher and a student at the same time. That's kind of like the tech skill of the day. And I'm not going to have you all do that with me, but I will show you. We've got some written instructions. I'll give you the slides, and all of this will be recorded as well. So if I go fast, don't worry about it. We will be able to let you see the instructions in written. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to log in as both teacher and student. I'm going to have you assign an assignment as a teacher, and then I'm going to have you take the assignment as a student. And then I'm going to have you grade the assignment as a teacher. And then I want you to see the feedback. So we're going to repeat that process a few times. And after we do that once, we're going to look at this new simplified user interface. And I'll explain to you what that means. All right. So here's the story. I found if I can log in on two screens at the same time, I can actually see what the students see. I can assign an assignment, then as I'm taking the assignment, then it just becomes a lot easier. So what we do in Voces, you will notice every time you make a class, there is a sample student. And I think a lot of teachers have asked me, why is that sample? It's a sample student that doesn't affect the number of licenses. It's really just a free license. And so let me log into Voces, which most of you have done this before. I'm going to choose Primaria as our book tonight. And so I'm logged in. And so what you'll see is this is our teacher interface. I'm going to create a class. And I think it's valuable to not use your real classes. You can log in as a fake student from your real class, but notice anytime you make a new class, and just for tonight's presentation, I'm going to call it fake class. You create it. And now you can see there's one student already in there. You didn't have to add anyone. So if you go down here and you want to see who that student is, if you click on the ID cards over here, and I might have to make this a little bit bigger for you, but you've got sample student. So a couple things to keep in mind. This class ID for the sample student, this is you, the teacher. This is the same one that all your students log in as. And you'll notice when you log into Voces, this is the class ID that you're using. Now, sample student has this user ID. So what we're going to do is open it up in a new browser. We're not going to use the same thing. So we're going to use the Chrome Incognito window tonight. Just give me a thumbs up or some sort of an indication in the chat. How many of you are familiar with Incognito windows?
No idea.
No idea. Okay, that's good. All right. And
Incognito in Google? Are you talking about the one in Google?
Yes. So basically, whether or not it's Google, they have other browsers connected. So you can open up in a different browser and you can log in as a different student. You might say, like right here, since I'm in Chrome, I'm going to open up the Incognito window. And you'll notice it looks slightly different because it's got a black background. And it tells you about what incognito means. And it says, I can browse privately. Other people who use this device won't see my activity. Well, a good thing about this is it allows me to sign in as a student and a teacher at the same time. So my links are still all available. So I'm just going to go right to my Voces platform. I'm going to sign in as a student. Now I'm going to use this information, that class ID, do the old copy and paste it in here. And remember, that's just like your normal ID. There's nothing different about that. And here is your student user ID. So here, I'm going to log in. And now I am logged in as a student. And so what I'm going to do, just to kind of make it easier for you all to see, I'm going to go full screen. I'll put the student on the right. I'll put the teacher on the left. All right. So a couple of things. Everything that you see tonight, we're going to do things. You're going to behave as the teacher. But then you're also going to go over and you're going to say, oh, I'm going to figure out what the student is going to experience. And so over on the right-hand side, you'll see when the student first logs in, they're going to get something as just a virtual tour, which is essentially just a way to, hey, welcome to the site. Do you know what all these buttons do? And students can click through. Notice this is there the first time a student logs on, and then they won't see it after that. It's just the very first time. And so you can go through the tour. I'm going to end the tour now because what I'm going to do is focus on a couple of specifics for us. So the teacher really wants to assign an assignment. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign an assignment, and then we're going to go over here and see what it looks like from the student perspective. And so just either verbally or in the chat, how many of you have already gone through the process of creating an assignment on the Voces platform?
Yes.
Yes. All right, I got
Yes.
Bev said, all right, good. All right. So Paola, not yet. Okay, so you'll be able to get this tonight. Hopefully you'll leave here with the tools and you'll say, oh, okay, this is great. I can do this. So let me just go ahead and show you how to create an assignment. You click on the assignments button. And I'm going to ignore these test classes, and I'm just going to use fake class. That's the one that you all saw me create a minute ago. And I'm going to create a new assignment. And I'm not on a particular page, so I'm going to go to a different page. And let's just go to Unit 1. We'll go to Historieta Uno. And we've got a couple of things on here. So first, Activity 1. This would be a good one to start with. So I'm just going to go into the first story. It's assigned here. Now, a lot of teachers have done this many times. You'll see, okay, I'm going to assign it to my fake class. I could put it in a folder. I'm not going to. Now, I'm about to make some decisions. Here's my first kind of easy decision. And it is, what kind of a deadline do I want? And so, we've got a hard deadline where students cannot submit after the date. There's a soft deadline. They can submit once, but it's going to be marked as late, or it's open-ended. They can submit anytime, whether or not the due date has passed. Now, there might be certain times where you want the soft deadline, and there'll be other times where you want an open-ended, other times where you want a hard deadline. And so sometimes teachers say, what's the best way to do it? I want to change that mindset for you all. It's just a different way. There's different ways to do it, and there's not a best way, because it's all about creating the experience for your students that you want to create. Now, here is the next thing. There's a lot of options here. And I would bet that most people don't know what all the options are. I'm still learning what all the options are. But here's what I want us to kind of understand, that it's okay to not know, because we're going to see what some of them do now. So for example, I'm just going to choose this one, the submission limit. Let's say that we can do it 3 times. That one seems self-explanatory. I bet many of you are already on board. You know what's going to happen there. And I also am going to choose show the correct answers. And so again, these are 2 decisions that I am making. There's other decisions up here. Like I might say modified point value. I know when my wife creates assignments, she likes to make everything 10 points, because that's just the way her grade book is kind of set up. I always had everything as 100. Last year and the year before, it's 100 points for everything, and then the categories did the weighting. And so if you don't click this, everything will just be depending on how many questions there are. But again, let's go ahead and assign this assignment. I've created it. All right, this assignment exists. But now, as a student, what does the student see? So let's go over to the right-hand side, and nothing has happened yet. So I'm going to just hit refresh, and we'll see if there's anything different. Now, anybody see anything different? I know I love to put everybody on the spot here. This kind of reminds us of teaching remotely during COVID, when the teacher just talks, asks questions, and everybody's like, did anybody notice anything different?
Well,
I actually wouldn't.
Side doesn't have profesores on it, and it's a lot less wording.
Yes, there's definitely a different menu for the students and for the teacher. And so over here, what happened when I hit refresh, this number 1 actually appeared right next to the assignments. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger for you, just so everybody can see it. I'll scroll over here. Notice when I zoom in, I'll go, that's a little too big. See that number 1? That tells the student I've got 1 assignment to do. And so they can click on it. And now you get to kind of see, all right, now a student has a choice. They can either click on it from their calendar, or there's a list that says go to assignment. And again, this might just be good for you all to know in case you're going through class, you've got 27 kids in the class, you're going to get, 11 of them are going to say, how do I get to the assignment? And you haven't seen the student user interface, so you're not sure. But now you kind of got an idea. And so this took me to the assignment. And I would like to make sure that when I shared my sound. So I'm going to actually do a new share so you can hear the sound. Can you all still see my screen? Okay, great. So choose the correct word or phrase to fit the sentence from the story. And so a student hits play.
Espacio, una alpaca. La alpaca es de Bolivia. La alpaca se llama Alice. Está. Hola. Hay.
All right, so it kind of gives you an idea. And I won't have you sit here and have me watch or take this entire thing, but hay una alpaca, la alpaca. All right, and so I won't even read some of these, but I'll just click on it. Now you can imagine your students are going to do this and they're going to read the questions and adios, amigas. And then I'm going to click on next section. There's I can statement, a can do statement. And so here's what you will have students quite often. They'll have to do this. Oh yeah, I can understand the greetings and a story about Alice. I can do this and more. All right, well, maybe they're here, but now you've at least seen the I can statements and you understand. And now when a student submits, this is what you see.
Hold on 1 second. Did you try
Yeah.
to, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please
Did
do.
you try to
Go ahead.
leave and it made you do did you try to, I missed it. Did you try to leave and it made you do the I can statement, or you just realized and you went back and did it?
I just realized it. And actually, when I assigned this assignment,
Uh,
there was, and if I go
Uh-huh.
back here, let's go to the I can statement. Where were we? Torreta. Hey, see these options right
so
here?
my question is, can it be so that they don't have to? Mhm.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out on me just a little bit. What was the question?
I was saying, I was asking if there's a way that forces them to complete the I can before they leave the page.
I don't know. I think what you just saw is the way that it works. So they could skip the I can statement, but I think there are some where you can assign that just have I can statements. And so when we get back to the student page, if you see what the student sees, there's a couple things I want to point out. Check mark tells me I got it right. Yeah, all right, that's great. Now, this one, the X tells me I got it wrong. Now I want to point something else out here. The correct answer, it tells me the correct answer is me amo. Now, as a teacher, you made that decision. And I don't know if any of you all remember when I made that decision. Remember, I checked the checkbox that said correct answer. And so I'm actually going to return to my slideshow just for a second. And I'm going to jump through here. Basically, by the way, in the slideshow, you'll have instructions for how to log in. And I'm not going to repeat those now, but here was the big point. You're going to use another browser, the Incognito and private browser. And I'm going to also, that's just showing you how to do it in different browsers. And here we go. You will see that every assignment setting does something. And if you're not sure what the assignment setting does, just check it and then see what it's like as a student. So if I kind of go through this, oh, by the way, the student has one assignment to complete. I pointed that out to you. You all saw that. But as we assigned the assignment, we checked the checkbox that did that for us. So that's kind of a simple one, but a couple other things I would like to point out is that up here in green, it tells me now the assignment has been completed. It also tells me a few things. The due date. I've got 2 submissions remaining. So check this out. Since I can do it again, look at this. Correct answer. Correct answer. I didn't even have to read the question there. And I submitted it. Now, there we go. Now I'm going to pause for a second and just have you all discuss. Are there times where you would want to show the correct answer and times when you would not want to show the correct answer? Does anybody have any thoughts?
I think when they're initially doing an activity, maybe the first time around is okay to show the answer, but there are multiple times where I don't, and I want them to figure it out. And sometimes if I have them do it in class, I'll have them work in pairs or small groups where then they can talk to each other to try to figure out what the right answer is. Because sometimes I do the option where it has to be 100% correct to turn in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so that's it's like a fun challenge for them.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
I just give them credit for completing it, but it has to be 100% correct. And I'm walking around helping too when I do that kind of like challenge for them.
And that's great. One of the things that I loved about what you just said that was Amy, right? Um,
Yes. Yeah.
that one of the things that I loved is you talked about combinations of decisions that you were making. You weren't just saying they have to get 100% right. You said they have to get 100% right, and they can take it multiple times, and I'm not going to show the answer. And
Right.
so think about how that affects the student experience. And that's the decision that now, as you know the platform, and it sounds like you've been very intentional about the way you do it, because you know, oh, you know what, this is going to turn into a small group activity. This is going to be an incentivized assignment where, you know, maybe they will be working together and they have to get that 100%. And
And I
so
just think
I
sometimes when they talk
go,
about things, they remember it better.
say that again.
Well, I feel like sometimes when the students have a chance to talk through the activity, they will remember it better.
Yeah. And that's great. You know, so you all as a teacher, you're making decisions on all of this content. So we have some great content here, but the way you present it, if I went to any of your classrooms, it could be vastly different. And so let me just jump back over to my presentation for a second. And once again, I'm just going to skip through a couple of things. And I'm going to go down to the new simplified user interface. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to change the user interface so you can see how it's different for the student. But I know that a lot of people don't even know what a user interface is. And so let's talk about that for a second. A user interface just describes the way a user interacts with technology. So it's how are your students going to get to where you want them to get to. So let's do some examples that you're used to. Here's two user interfaces that you probably see all the time. And think about, you know, if you're on Netflix on your iPhone versus on your iPad versus on your Roku versus on your Samsung TV, all those user interfaces are slightly different. I know, like, I don't like the new Amazon Prime user interface on my Roku. Look different than that's on my computer. I just know that I see different user interfaces every single day, every time I interact with technology. Here's a couple that you're going to be seeing in your classroom. Oh, yeah. So we've got Google Classroom on the left. We got Canvas on the right. Real quickly, either saying it or typing in the chat, could you all tell me if you use either Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology or any learning management system? Okay, I see a Google Classroom from Amy. And some teachers don't use them at all. I know that the last few years I was heavily involved in Canvas, and I have used Google Classroom and I've used Moodle in the past. All right, and so Classroom, all right, great, thank you, Bev. So let's talk about Voces, our simplified user interface. So just on the left, that's a student user interface that we all just experienced. On the right, this is what our simplified user interface is. And every textbook has both. And so you as the teacher get to make that decision. How do you want your students' user experience to be? So I'm going to change it and I'm going to show you how that works real quickly. Let me get back over to my student and teacher. Well, first thing that you need to do is on your teacher's panel, you go to settings. And again, those instructions will be in the slideshow. And I'm just going to go down to my user interface. I think I already missed it. Hold on a sec. Sorry, 1 second. All right, settings. I think that's what I did. There it is. Apologize for that. So traditional Voces interface, that's the one that was highlighted. Here's the simplified user interface. And so now it's done and it's changed for your student. But over here, you'll see nothing has really changed for your student. What you have to do is log out. So I'm going to log out and then I'm going to log back in. And in case you forgot, remember how we log in with our student over here. So I've got, that's my Voces user ID or class ID. My user ID is this. Okay, so real quickly, I'm going to ask people just to interact slightly. In 25 seconds, what is the first thing that you notice? Either speak or type. Only going to give you a few seconds. Colors.
Oh. So like between the two sides?
Yeah, well, between this is, remember on the right-hand side, this is what the student now sees. The student doesn't see what was over here on the left. So over here on the left is how the old user interface is, or the traditional one. Over here on the right is the new simplified user interface.
A lot less options.
There's a lot less options. And that might be something that you really want to do. Notice by default, if you teach from Primaria, this is the default user interface. There's just fewer options, fewer things for the students to do. But what I'm going to do is, I think for us to like really understand it, obviously we can see the colors, and that's okay if you're just listening. That's great. If you just see the colors, you're like, all right, what's this? But all of these are different buttons. So the work summary, if I click on work summary, I will see, oh, this is the assignment that I just did a few minutes ago. And if I wanted to, I could click into that assignment. And, oh, here it was. Oh, I still have one submission remaining. That's part of my user interface. And, okay. And so here we go. I could say, hola. Notice this is slightly different than before, isn't it? I'm doing the same assignment that we did a few minutes ago.
So kind of like fewer distractions. So you just focus on this one, then it goes to the next one.
Right. And it's not all the things on the same page. It's just one question at a time. And again, here is that option that we talked about with the can-do statements. Now I've got that. Now I'm to the end. Now I save and submit. Now, I just did the exact same activity, but it just looked different. I navigated to it in a different way. And I think for us to completely understand how the user interface works, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a couple more assignments as a teacher, and I'm going to assign them, and I'm going to go over to the student side and take them and see, all right, well, what's that actually going to do? And I will just encourage, if anybody has questions as we're going, feel free to interrupt me and ask me some questions. And if you have some ideas when I'm creating the assignment, feel free to blurt them out.
Is this something that it would apply to the whole class, or that you can apply to individual students?
It would apply to the whole class. That's a good question. Yeah. So everybody will be using the same interface. So I'm going to create a new assignment. And in this one, let's see, I might just do same thing. We'll still go to Historieta Uno. I'm going to jump down to one of our new types of assignments, because we do have multiple choice, and some of those are pretty self-explanatory and sequence ones. But this is a brand new one that we developed this summer. It's a dibuja activity. And so notice when I'm going through, this is for my fake class, some of the options are the same: due date, hard deadline, soft deadline. That's pretty straightforward on every assignment. But these options are going to be different based on the type of assignment that I'm assigning. Some of them will always be the same. Apply a modified point value. All right, I could make it 10. I could make it 100 if I wanted. I could just make it extra credit. Someone said that sometimes you make assignments that you didn't give them points, or you give them full points if they get 100% done, right? And so, and this, I would like students to be able to submit this a couple of times, and I don't want them to leave the page. And I'll give them a couple of warnings for that. Now, I bet a lot of you all have seen this and you're like, I don't really know what that means. I don't know what that does. Well, we're going to experience. So you can kind of cognitively understand what it means, but to feel it, to understand it, that's a separate thing. So since this is a drawing activity, there's no right answer. So it won't make sense to show the correct answers in this case. So as we go through, create the assignment. Now that has been assigned. I'm going to go back over to the student side, and I want to point out something. If you look at the green right here, that's where usually I would click if I have an assignment, but it says no assignment. But I just assigned an assignment. So I'm going to do that magic refresh and pay attention to that green button that's right there. So as I refresh the page, 2 changes happened. Hopefully you saw that the green is no longer faded out. It's a bright, vibrant green. And instead of it saying no assignment, it says next assignment. So if you're a student, you're going through here, there's not a lot of choices, as you discovered. So they want to come here and do the homework. This might be how you get them to the homework in very few clicks. Okay, a couple of things to keep in mind. This page has been assigned to me. I've got 2 submissions remaining. All right, I'm gonna start. Oh, so now Elise meets 3 friends in Mexico. Draw the favorite of your friends. Don't forget to draw where they live too. So here, I'm gonna allow my camera. This is interesting. Here's that first warning. Remember a minute ago when I clicked on, if I leave the page, I'm gonna get a warning. All right, so I've started my camera, and what I'm gonna do is draw a picture. Because this is, I'm sure that there are times in your class, language teachers, where you want your students drawing. I don't have a lot of art skills, but neither will some of your students. And so now I'm going to hold up my wonderful picture to the camera, and I'll capture the photo. And now as a student, all right, now I can go ahead and submit. And the answer to your question from earlier, can I just skip over the can do statements? I'm going to try it. I want to see what happens. Okay, I submitted. So it looks like I don't have any assignments left. If I go back to my dashboard, that's it. Now, here's the beauty of something like this. Now let's go back to our teachers panel, because what I want to do is go over here and now grade that assignment or see what it's like. So you'll notice if I click on teachers panel, I'll make the teacher side a little bigger for a moment. If I click on teachers panel, grading, that 15 up above, that tells me I've got 15 assignments I need to grade. I got 14 from a class earlier, which, as you all know, I hate to imagine how many assignments some of you have. How many total students do some of you have? Is anyone? I heard like 25 and 27. You're teaching like 4 or 5 classes. I've just been on calls this summer with teachers that have 35, 38 students in a class, teaching 5, 6 classes. But anyway, I digress. Oh, 125, that's a lot, Bev. All right, 150. Yeah, that's a lot. And imagine what you need to know, like a teacher who has 60 students and a teacher who has 150 students, they are capable of doing different things. And so you would provide a different type of user experience to those. I've taught at public school and I've taught at private school. And a big part of my career at private school, we had a cap of 16 students. and per class. And it was great, and I could do different things. But I also taught at a school in Massachusetts, at a little high school, and I would have 38, 35 students in a class. And so you have to just always be aware. All right, so 8 classes and about 180 students. All right, 12 classes. All right. So let me just go back to the teachers panel once again, grading. And so this fake class, you can see I've got one thing that I need to grade. So I'm going to click on that. I can see sample student has turned something in. Oh, look, this is great. So I can see that drawing from my student. Now, I don't know about you, but the fact that when I did this, I really understood what it was like to complete one of these assignments. I can also grade it now. I can put a comment and I can say, excellent work. If I wanted to, I could do an audio recording here. I could say, okay, great job. This is teacher feedback. Now I'm typing this in because I'm going to show you how your decision to leave a little bit of a note, or to, maybe your student is out because of COVID and you're not going to see the student for 2 weeks and you want to give an audio recording. You can do that. And I'm using audio right now in Zoom, so it might not let me do that. And so, oh yes, now I am recording. It's in progress. This is feedback to my student. And now I hit stop. I'm going to save this. Okay, I just graded. Now, I'm hoping that you're all dying to see what the student sees, right? You're on the edge of your seat. You're saying, oh, what's going to happen? Let's go see. The student goes, you go over to work summary. All right, I can see this. The student gets here. Hey, look, teacher notes. Great job. This is teacher feedback. All right. This page has specific comments. Please go to the page to view them. So, by the way, we all know that many of your students will never look at your feedback. But sometimes audio feedback and video feedback, I've found over the last few years that if I would do that, they would actually listen to it. Some of them would really like it. Now, some students, they're not going to look at any feedback. And you have to find that fine line between spending too much time on feedback and not enough time. And so oh yes, now I am recording. It's in progress. This is feedback to my student. And now I hit stop. And so, we won't listen to that one again. So it's interesting. You get to listen to your own voice again. But I think seeing this and then seeing how to grade it, then seeing where the feedback is, it's also going to help you with those little conversations. If you are, last year, I would build in feedback into my classes because I try to give feedback, and I would make it a part of certain activities and say, okay, you have to go and look at the feedback right now, ask them. We had 2 grading systems. We had grades in Canvas and in PowerSchool, and I had to import grades from Canvas, export them to PowerSchool, and I had to make sure that they were right. And so I would use the students to double check my work, because there's always somebody who's like, nope, my grades are not up to date, and they'll let you know right away. But if you kind of build that in, you get into the habit of showing students where these things are, and you can actually get them to check your feedback quickly. And it's something that you can't really do it if you've never experienced this as a student. If you don't know where that teacher feedback goes, if that teacher recording that you recorded, you don't realize it's right here, the student might not ever see that. The student might only see this part, teacher notes, great job, this is teacher feedback. So I'm going to pause there for 1 second and see if you all have any questions about, so far, the new student user interface, about how to assign assignments, how to take assignments, how to see feedback, anything in particular that you're like, okay, I need to know more. And that's okay if you don't, because I've got plenty planned.
Well, and I was thinking of that incognito screen. So if I am using the smart board, I could go to the incognito screen and not have a split screen, but just use that screen as the student version.
Yeah,
And then actually they see what is on their Chromebooks. Like, because
that's
normally
exactly right.
I would just have up my teacher one and I would say, well, I don't know what yours looks like, but here's what I have.
Right.
So I see how valuable that's going to be just for presenting activities.
Yeah, and that's really, it's interesting that you brought that one up because I was working with a teacher today who's using the Voces platform, and she's working with grade school kids, and they, from like third, fourth, and fifth grade, and even some younger kids, maybe first and second graders. And so they don't have access to computers. So she's doing it all. She's printing out some things, but she wanted to present from her screen. And she found that on some of the activities, there would be instructions for the teacher. And, if you go through, you'll see instructions in yellow boxes. Let me see if I can find one of those in particular. And say that we were going to go to Introduction to Unit 1. And I guess this is not going to be like that because there's going to be a separate teacher and student one. And I didn't plan it, but hopefully you understand what I mean. There are those little yellow boxes that you see, and that when the student sees it on their screen, those yellow boxes and teacher instructions are not visible. So what I want to do is just assign another assignment, look at a couple of different choices that you can make. And so I'm just going to go back and I'm going to create a new assignment. I'm not going to assign it to these other classes. I'll go back into my first chapter, first unit, and I'll go ahead and I'll do this one and this one and this one. I'm going to do all of these at once because that's something that I haven't done and I don't really know what that does for the teacher and student, for the student experience yet. So I'm going to assign it full class, make my decisions here. I'll have it due. And I bet that you all have done this. And as you do it, you're going to get so good, you're just going to zoom right through these and oh no, hard deadline. I know what that's all about. Soft deadline, open-ended. You won't even have to get there. Now you'll notice a couple of things up here. Modified point value is still here. And I'm going to make this one worth 100 points. Submission limit, that's still here. Prevent students from leaving the page. Look at this. Students may only record each audio once. And so this is a decision that is only applied to that last activity, which I assigned in the group of 3, where students are recording their own assignments or their own voices. This is one that I don't know what's going to happen. Automatically recording. Let me do it. I'll just click it. Now, here's the other thing. This is the mindset that you should be able to go with. Like, I don't know what these buttons do. Let's just go for it. It's kind of exciting to see what's going to happen. And so as we click on some of these other things, you know what? I'm going to also put a timer and say they have to spend at least 2 minutes on this assignment. And I won't put any of these other ones on here. I'll show some correct answers. Why not? And I create an assignment. Now you'll notice I just did a little batch of assignments. I did some of them all at the same time. So as I refresh this page, when I click next assignment, it's not going to give me a choice. It's just going to take me right to the very next assignment, the very next one that I put in the queue. And so here's the start page. Here's another one that I think that I've had some students ask me about in the last 3 weeks, is that like, all right, some students will try to type A here, A. I'm pushing the button, A is not working. Oh, the way this works is you click on where you want the letter to go and then you click on the letter and it goes in there for you. I've had other students who try to drag it. These aren't draggable, right? And again, these are some pretty simple things once you see them happen. But if you haven't done this and experienced it, you're going to say, oh, I don't know. It seems reasonable, Johnny, that you're trying to type into that box. But now you're going to say, oh, no, just click on it. It's going to help you communicate with students way more quickly because you understand some of the technological options that we have here. And another thing to keep in mind, you'll notice when I put a letter into the box, it makes it so there's a line through it. And so, oh, that's no longer an option. So what if I would try to put 2 into the same box? So if I said A is the answer to 1 and the answer to 2. As a student, I can see right away there's only one option. If I'm going to go ahead and submit it, and I'm going to see what happens. This is not letting me submit. Right now, I bet all of you are like, Voces is messed up, there's a bug. But does anybody know what actually happened? This is a decision that I made when I assigned it.
2 minutes.
Yeah, remember I gave it a 2-minute limit? There's 11 seconds left. Look at the bottom, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, right in the middle, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, I'm able to submit. Now, this is another thing where, honestly, I was doing this on the walkthrough. I thought there was a bug when I was doing the walkthrough because I was like, I can't submit. There's no way that I can submit. I didn't see the timer. And then I realized afterwards, I was like, oh, wait, I made that decision as a teacher. And so you all could imagine if you've got all those students in a class, how many of them are going to say, I can't submit, I tried to submit, I can't submit. And there's like, you'll get bombarded. But if you know, all of a sudden you can expect that, you can say, hey, remember, I wanted you to spend at least 2 minutes on this activity. And so you'll just have to wait. You'll still be able to submit afterwards. And again, it's just another example of where you can use one of these tools to make a decision that really has an effect on a student experience that you want it to have. And so as you go through, I won't do any more assignments, but I just want you all to keep in mind a couple of things. And as we're getting to the end of our time, or have we gone over the time? Let me see. Couple of things to keep in mind as you go through here. I'm just going to scroll right down to our little summary at the end. Every single decision that you make as a teacher has an effect on the student experience. And by logging in as a teacher, then logging in as a student in a different window, that's like the technological skill using the sample student, you can experience it and you can feel what that is like. And once you understand what each of those decisions does, it allows you to just make better decisions as a teacher, and you can help create a Voces experience for your student. You shape what the experience is going to be. And the other thing to keep in mind is it's okay to just click some of these check boxes and try things out and not to know. Experiment right at the very end. And sometimes you're going to stumble onto things. And then once you've done it, you're always going to know, oh yeah, there's a 2-minute timer. Oh yeah, it's going to give you a warning. Oh yeah, it won't show the answers. So I'm going to wrap it up there and just say thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. And I'm going to hang around afterwards if anybody has any questions that they would like to talk about. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Maria. And Hannah did put in there, if anybody does want to walk through, if you want to, you can go ahead and click the link. That's all on our website. Appreciate everyone coming and spending their evening time with me, and hopefully you found it to be a helpful and useful experience.